actor Kiefer Sutherland is taking issue with Ontario Premier Doug Ford's government. Sutherland's grandfather is Tommy Douglas, Premier of Saskatchewan from 1944 to 1961, and the, quote, father of Medicare. Both Minister Lisa MacLeod and Premier Ford have referred to Douglas in their online and public defense of their fiscal policy. Here's part of what Kiefer Sutherland tweeted at the Premier today. Mr. Ford, your tweet has recently come to my attention. I personally find your comparison of your policies to his, meaning Tommy Douglas's, offensive. So I can only ask, as the grandson of this man, for you to stop posting his picture and using his name as part of your political agenda. After all, I knew Tommy Douglas, and you, sir, are no Tommy Douglas. P.S. You're lucky my mom's not active on Twitter. So, Rachel, I'll start with you. What do you make of this?
Great. Yeah, this is a no-win. I mean, no government is going to be more popular than Kiefer. Who doesn't love Kiefer? So yeah, the government, especially a government that's engaged in a deficit reduction exercise, the Ontario government has some really tough decisions to make. It's got to get Ontario's finances back in order. Look, it released a budget which actually laid out a pretty moderate and modest plan to return to balance over a period of years. These so-called cuts that folks are screaming about are quite minor, in fact. The reduction to the budget of Toronto Public Health, for instance, was 2% or slightly less. But none of that is going to make you popular as a government. And the Ontario government is in the phase of its mandate when it should do all the things that are going to be deeply unpopular. So this is the reality of governing. You don't get into politics to be popular. And Doug Ford and his cabinet are going to be taking it on the chin from a whole lot of people, including, unfortunately, Kiefer Sutherland, who, by the way, doesn't have to pay taxes in Ontario and doesn't have to cover the $1 billion per month in interest on Ontario's debt that's eventually going to bankrupt the province.
It's interesting because I know as a portion, I take your point, as a portion of the overall budget, the cuts are not massive. But Brad, they have been, I mean, sometimes the impact of them has been so controversial that the Premier has backtracked on them. For example, in the one that you referenced, Rachel, the public health cuts, Mayor Tory and other mayors were so opposed because they'd already passed their budget. They said it was, they really vocalized their opposition to it. And the Premier ended up backtracking and pushing them off a year.
Well, yeah, this fight that Mr. Ford has found himself in with Kiefer Sutherland, the point that Mr. Sutherland is making is that Tommy Douglas did balance the budget, and he paid all the debt that Saskatchewan owed in quite a small amount of time, and kept the province in balance for his entire premiership. But he didn't do it on the backs of the children in classrooms. He didn't cut programs in healthcare. He didn't shrink the municipalities' budgets. He didn't have to do any of those things, yet he achieved that. So it's a wonderful opportunity for New Democrats to actually talk about the vision that we have to get to balance, or Mr. Romano many years later in Saskatchewan, or Gary Dewar did in Manitoba as a New Democrat premier. Many New Democrat premiers have had to rescue provinces from bad fiscal situations and have done it not on the backs of people. Yet Mr. Ford's vision is to do precisely that. And that's Mr. Sutherland's point in the tweet today. But the bigger issue is why is Lisa MacLeod out there using Tommy Douglas's legacy in 2019 by a PC government in Ontario? It was a monster overreach by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm still baffled as to what her point is. Stay on focus of what your job is to do, and she's going after 95-year-old New Democrat voters who have moved to Ontario from Saskatchewan. I'm sure it's a very niche market that she's going after, because all she's done, Ms. MacLeod has done, is allowed New Democrats to talk about the fantastic legacy of Tommy Douglas and how New Democrats get to balance, but they don't do it on the backs of kids and the disadvantaged.
The Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, Lisa MacLeod, JP, did respond to this with a tweet today. She referenced Designated Survivor, Kiefer Sutherland's show, with like a billboard picture. She said, "I used to like this show. Alas, it's more difficult to be a politician than pretend to be one on TV."
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was actually a decent response, I thought. And you know what? First, it seems like an odd comparison to make, Doug Ford, Tommy Douglas, not quite the first thing that comes to mind when you think of comparisons. But yeah, as Brad was just saying, Tommy Douglas ran 17 consecutive budget surpluses. And so did Roy Romano, and so did Gary Dewar in almost equal number, I'd say. So it's kind of interesting to see it's a kind of a lesson in how party politics have shifted so dramatically over the decades, where, prairie populism met having, pretty clean books. Now it's not so sure that that's where the party stands on these sort of things in Ontario at the very least, because Andrea Horwath, of course, campaigned on running deficits and maintaining the Liberal levels of spending. So that sort of playbook is gone, I'd say. It's interesting also that last line of the tweet, that's the one that did it for me. You're lucky my mom's not active on Twitter. Yeah, Shirley Douglas is a firecracker. I don't think I'd want to go up against her either, so he's probably lucky that she's not there.
Quick final word to you, Yolande.
I was just saying it's pretty simple here that this completely backfired, and beyond, in addition to the comments that the colleagues made with respect to whether it's comparable or not, I just don't think it's in good taste for any politician to really speak for the deceased or in their name in terms of what they would think. You get yourself into trouble for doing that, especially when they can't respond, and doubly so when Kiefer Sutherland is the politician in question's grandson. And I don't think that this is a situation where you just have a Hollywood star just waking up talking about Canadian politics, so he doesn't live here. He's directly invoking his grandfather's legacy, and I think it was really on point in the response that he gave, notably about his mama not being on Twitter.
All right, I'll leave it there. Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much to the Power Panel tonight. Brad Levine, Yolande James, Rachel Curran, and John Paul Tasker. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video. Thanks for watching.